All right, everybody. Are you ready for the Piscean showdown? Uh, Either we have the ending coming in, which is just nothing more than, the end of Pisces, the end of the zodiac, and starting new, or there's one big conflict coming. This is for the week of March 9th through March 15th, just before spring equinox. And it's not like a pleasant ending, it doesn't look like, at least for this zodiacal year. Let's go surfing. How's everybody doing? Okay, here's our summary slide. And it is rather confusing, in my opinion. I didn't do that on purpose. It's just the energetic layout is kind of confusing. We will go through all this. This is just the overview. And we have a lot of planets in Pisces here right in the center. And we have Saturn is a part of that. And I missed that part. Oh, sorry about that. So we're missing a planet here in Pisces. There's a heavy Piscean influence this week. Okay. And this is a continuation of last week, right? But we have a significant square over to Mars that is really starting to weigh in on pressure, conflict, tension. And then there's this other square with Venus, our princess of peace. She's actually in a fight with control freak Pluto. So that's not looking very good. Now, incidentally, the I-Ching says conflict. Well, that's what we're looking at, are all these squares, and it's a lot worse than what I've kind of indicated here. Meanwhile, the moon is in its waning stage, and we'll talk about what all that means and put it all together. The dream bot, the collective unconscious, is kind of where we're going to start. And it's already looking towards the total solar eclipse. And that's at the time of this recording, a month, and so probably 6 weeks out ish. And that's about right. The collective unconscious, that front edge, is about 6 weeks from what we've seen in the past. So we also have some preparedness in there. And that really does match well with the Piscean influence, only from the standpoint, each one of these signs has its big advantages and then biggest risks. And the biggest risks with Pisces, or that feeling, is it feels like the end. So preparing is a definite one. Conflict is not so much a Piscean thing, obviously. This is more of the alignments. So the overlap, because of the Pisces, the squares, is I think the Piscean influence is going to get hijacked, or potential. The potential for the Piscean energy, which can be very positive, connected, spiritual, transcendent, emotional, can get hijacked as well, just like any of the signs. And the hijacking for the Pisces is to see the pessimism, see the pessimistic view, see the ending, the sky is falling. And hopefully that doesn't happen, because you'll have a heads up on this week, but you'll probably see it happening in others. All right, let's go ahead and get started, because this is quite confusing. All right, and we start our journey in the collective unconscious. Let's zoom in. Oh, man. All right, so the words for the total solar eclipse, we have planet, spring. Okay, this linguistic set, I'm not really sure exactly. This can denote a lot of different things, but let me just read it. Spring will total March. And if you really think about it, spring is when, obviously, spring starts in March. That's with the upcoming new moon. That'll be in the next CIRF report. And it's in Aries, the new moon, and that'll be the first of 2 new moons in a row in Aries. The second one is going to be in April, and that's a total solar eclipse. So the word will is Aries. Spring and March are when it manifests, and total solar eclipse. And now the rest of the words are very much all about this eclipse: edge, moon, magic, fragment, energy, dimension, planet, etc. So in my opinion, this run is primarily about the total solar eclipse coming in about 6 weeks. And that's about right. You can start to feel that energy on these eclipses and the bigger ones much further out than just a regular old full moon. Now, the blue arrows is more about preparedness. Words like prepare, water, rice, response, getting your food ready. But in competition, this run is not dominating by conflict, but it's sort of indicated a little bit with the words like will and competition. And yeah, so it's not too strong, but preparedness is definitely one of the memes. Much lower in dominance, and it's the total solar eclipse that takes the cake. All right, so let's get into the astrology. This is where the meat and the potatoes is. March 2023, and we're looking at right at midpoint in March. Okay, so there's some big events, obviously. You've got a lot of planets that are moving into new signs. We've covered a lot of those so far. We have right in the middle, you just see all these alignments, and there's only a couple of green ones, but they got a lot of blacks, and the blacks are indicated of extra intensity or extra conflict. And so that's unusually high all the way through March, right? The black ones. So the intensity is higher. You have a lot of these squares coming to fore at the same time. Conjunctions and squares. This big one is Sun and Mars, and it comes to a head just after this CIRF week. And so in this transition from this CIRF week, which ends on the 15th, and into the next CIRF week, starting on the 16th and 17th, we have some major intensity happening. So right in the middle. And then right after that intensity, right as it starts to crest off, you have the sun going into the spring equinox in Aries. And then right away, a first of 2 new moons in Aries. Okay. So that's intense. It is unusual to have 2 new moons in the same sign. It's not unheard of, but it is special. This is really, really special for a new moon to be twice in Aries right in a row. And the second one just happens to be a total solar eclipse. So that's pretty cool, but it's a very Aries feel. Once we shift out of Pisces, it is bang, big ol' Aries. And that's might be what we're looking at in terms of our energies here. It's already forward looking into conflict. Yeah, it's only one of Aries' many specialties: aggression, will, ardent. But now it's about Pisces, and unfortunately, it's going to be trying to really test our positive side of Pisces, to keep that connected and spiritual, and unfortunately it can cause a lot of people to escape this week. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Thursday the 9th. Basically what we have is Saturn has just entered into Pisces, and what that means, we did a whole other video. Look for episode 3, talks all about episode 3 of Future Casting talks all about Saturn going into Pisces and what that means. Okay, so it's basically the limited compassion, maybe some spiritual challenges, other challenges of maybe extra emotional, maybe more anxiety is what Saturn typically produces in that Piscean quest. So if it's spiritual or connectedness or even mystical area, the transpersonal area, there's challenges to it with Saturn. Now, that piece right there is congruent with the moon. The moon is just after its full moon. How was your full moon in Virgo, everybody? Was it strong? Was it stronger than the Piscean energy? Did we get that right? Or were they sort of together, melded together, and then the intensity just went up? Anyway, write those comments below. And anyway, after we get out of this full moon now, it starts to wane. And in terms of moon and sun, the moon becomes the superior force compared to the sun. And so yin becomes the main energy, at least from planet Luna. But that is not congruent with the rest of the alignments. And this is the foot stomper because it's going to get more significant as we move on this week. You have the rest of the Piscean gang here, Neptune, Sun, Mercury in a detriment here, meaning that he's weaker. Mind is weak in Pisces. Thoughts, rational stuff kind of goes out the window. And that makes it even harder for our ego. But the ego itself is already in conflict with Mars. Now you look at this green trine here and you sort of think, maybe it's a positive thing. Maybe we have some positive Mars. Well, it's easy. This energy is easy. Mars, easy to feel, limited compassion. Oh, great. All right, so Mars is actually extra conflicted even with a trine. We do have an opportunity with Mars and Venus in a sextile. Maybe this is more of like a financial opportunity. There's always opportunities everywhere, but especially look for, passion. Mars and Venus together is a sort of a passion. But unfortunately, through the rest of this week, Venus is going to pick up a square over to Pluto, and that's going to throw things a little bit off. So this control and struggle against Pluto is really going to exacerbate what's happening here, which is the increase of intensity between Mars and Pisces. So Pisces is going to get conflicted. Now, what do we know about the Pisces reactions? Well, Pisces can react in a manner of compassion. That's one. It's a positive side. A negative side is that Pisces can react with escapism, kind of just avoid conflict altogether. They're the most avoidant, maybe with Aquarius on that same level, avoidant of conflict. And so escapism is on high alert. Then also they can be the biggest victims if they're not careful. And I think this week is a big challenge to that. Don't become the victim, all right? We'll go through this more extensively because when we get into Friday, the 10th, we have, like I mentioned, we have the Venus is picking up a square over to Pluto, and Pluto becomes a T-square. So now think of it this way, just big picture. You're starting to get a lot more conflict around concepts of control, power and control. That's Pluto. And there's a trap there. And traps means it's high tension, feeling like compelled, that you motivated to orchestrate in this manner. So power and control. Also feeling like the end. This exacerbates this whole end of the zodiac Pisces kind of context, is that Pluto gets some tension. So it kind of feels more pressured to, feel like the world is ending or your life is ending or the crumbling of what's good, forgetting that life is a cycle and that the ending isn't the ending, it's the beginning. So anyway, I don't know. So think about it this way, big picture. You got these extra conflicts, extra tension, even with the trine. In fact, we got a grand air trine or grand trine because technically Saturn is in water. But big picture, you've got extra tension, and the moon itself is going inward, is going down, is drawing down. That's the waning stage. And so it's yin strong. Yin is not about fighting and going outward and producing. It's about shutting things down, shedding, lightening its load, relaxing, starting to rejuvenate more. And that is at odds with the rest of the alignments. So we've already have a conflict already starting between energies. The energies of yin and the energies of yang are at odds with each other here, unfortunately. So like we talked about, the trine and the squares are actually synergizing, creating more of a conflict and tension. The grand trine is really contradictive of each other. So it's not this big positive triangle. Oh, cool. It's all great energy. It's lighting up, mainly the challenge of Saturn. And it's not even in the same sign. So it's temporary too with the moon. On Saturday, check this out. We could have an extra square because Mercury is now entering into a conjunction with the sun. Sun is in conjunction with Neptune. Yeah, it's all Pisces. But more importantly, Mercury that is already weakened, is already weakened and is getting even weaker with the sun. So it's conjunct with the sun and 5 degrees away, and now was going to be entering into more of a very, very Pisces oriented mind, where rational just completely goes out the window, unable to think, unable to communicate effectively, and will be tricked by Neptune. And all that Pisces energy is conflicted with Mars, and which is our action, our yang. And it's feeling compelled and motivated to go do stuff, maybe even get defensive. And it's in Gemini, so things want to be rational. Well, you're not going to get a lot of rational. Nobody is, because of this. Mercury extra weakened, double weakened. So Pisces is highly charged now. Pisces in general, highly charged. And we're going to have a hard time avoiding conflict. So now is where free will comes in. People who feel a difficult time to feel peace and connectedness and empathy and compassion. What do you do? What do you normally do? Do you run away? Do you avoid? Well, we're going to be talking about this in the solution slide, or what behaviors to use, a little bit later. But right now, I just want you to be really feeling the potential already for this emotion so that you're prepared for it. And the emotion is, oh, great, here comes some conflict. And now your free will comes in to either escape or turn into and engage with it. You can even fight against it. I think naturally a lot of the Pisceans will, when they feel this strongly of in a conflict, they will either escape or be a victim. And they'll use the victim mindset for an illusion of power. Okay. All right. Now is so Saturday night into Sunday morning, this is where you're going to spring forward and change your stupid clocks. And I also put be careful here, because we know in studies that when we start changing daylight savings time and back again, anytime this is the worst, by the way, springing forward, we're actually losing an hour. It's kind of like going from California back to the East Coast. So you're going in that direction. And that's the most hazardous, apparently, to the circadian rhythm. So now the circadian rhythm is disrupted. You've lost an hour. Not just because of thinking about losing an hour. It's a real synergistic, unfortunately, effect on the body. We have car wrecks go up. We have heart attacks that go up statistically. So just be careful on Sunday, especially Sunday, but also Monday. That's why they do it between Saturday and Sunday, 'cause they know it's unsafe. So when you're driving to church, make sure that you drive very safe. We're into daylight savings time now. We've lost an hour. Congratulations. That just feeds right into this Piscean conflict. Now we have a synergistic effect with the moon. The moon's now in Scorpio in a waning stage, closing in on a last quarter. So it's really buttoning things up, finalizing as much as you can. You know, in this point, you're starting to rejuvenate, relax, unwind. You can do small things, but not new projects. And that's synergistic with the Pisces energy, but unfortunately, this is stronger. This square energy over to Mars, it's magnifying. So you got Mercury within 3 degrees of the sun, so combust and getting even weaker still. And it's in conflict. So Monday the 13th, we have 3 degrees from the sun and Neptune, so more dreamy ego, or ego is even more idealistic. As things get disrupted by Neptune, your ego is going to feel probably a little out of control, especially if you can't rationalize. You can't make sense of things because Mercury is over there getting weakened. All that now with a very tight square, tightening even more. This goes exact on the 16th, which is outside of our CIRF window, just a day. But Mars square Sun, that's the biggest one that's going to cause conflict within, and then people going to react in fight or flight. Flight is escape. Fight is obviously sort of a human nature as well. One of those two, but we're in sympathetic nervous system mode, and it's unhealthy if it's chronic. Yeah, that's the other archetype that I didn't really go into, is the idealism of Pisces. And that's the part of Pisces that's not going to mesh well with tension and conflict, misunderstanding, and the motivation to fight, the motivation to stand up for yourself and get things done. So that's going to be rough. Tuesday, we have a very, very supercharged, conflicted last quarter moon. Last quarter moon is in Sagittarius. So as far as moon goes, that the part that matches that stage of the moon is the Sagittarius energy in terms of snipping connections and sort of just want to be independent and just go about my life free. That's very much congruent with the last quarter. It's not the definition of last quarter is going to be the moon square sun. So there is a conflict there. There's a pressure already. But now it's magnified tremendously. And now our Pisces energy, our gang of 3 here, are on the hot seat for the T-square. It's a triple T-square with Mercury combust. And so in a detriment state. So almost not even there. Also, to make things even worse, Mercury is entering into that conjunction with Neptune. So making it a just absolutely dreamy ego and mind, now totally immersed in an illusion or escapism, and it's dominated by emotion. There is no rationality now. There's just hippocampus and reactionary. There's no executive functioning here, basically. and it's all conflicted. So the motivation is to either run or engage and fight. So high probability of the Pisces turning into be a victim. And what we know from psychology is beware the victim. The biggest perpetrators, I'm not saying this is limited to Pisces, this is all of zodiac signs. The biggest victim are going to be the biggest violent people because they feel justified in their violence and getting back. Obviously, the way they levy this is different. Scorpio is a little bit more vengeful. And, Sag, for example, just wants to be, free and independent to go do my thing and not so tied down. So there's different ways of fighting this. The Pisces we already talked about has several options. But don't become the victim, at least in your perceptive field. Resist perceiving victimhood, all right? You'll lose your power that way. Now on Wednesday, this is the most extreme because we have some more intensity. Not only do we have Mercury and Neptune in a conjunction, but they're in parallel. So their vertical aspects are the same. And so that's mind is way easily tricked. There's almost no way of catching it now. And so now you're just in that false reality. You're in a simulation. You're in a first-person video game as you go, and you don't even know you're in it. And now with all this conflict and even the trine with Saturn, you have a high chance of feeling like you're a victim of this simulation, whatever that feels like. This is this is at 6:38 p.m. Sun and Neptune together perfectly. It's gone perfect at that time on the 15th of March. And so with a ultra weakened mind, ultra intense in dreams, it is feeling like reality is out the window. Total craziness, total circus, but feels like a simulation or a first-person video game, and something negative about it. It's pessimistic. It's not positive. You feel trapped in it. Whatever the feeling is, you're a victim of it. So hold on for our solution, but you want to pay attention to that part, because once you feel this, it's going to be hard to climb out of that. All right, the I-Ching, there are no change lines, so our influence is the solution, but I'm going to first just read for the influence. Conflict often arises when a person who is convinced that he or she is entitled to something meets with opposition. That can be a victim as well. In such cases, the wise choice is not to push things to the bitter end, because knocking heads perpetuates ill will. So don't get back here. If you find yourself justifying, then you can do something different. Conflict can emerge that serves no real purpose other than allowing for someone to vent their frustration. We may be timid about speaking up or rocking the boat in a situation in which we feel frustrated. Indecision and sweeping frustration under the rug leads us out to meet the world with a sour attitude. So this is the stuff that you're probably going to feel. And let's go to the summary slide for the influence so that I can give you then the chart, the energy chart, show you when these are the strongest. So here's the overview. You'll have some people saying the end is nigh, and it also could be just metaphoric for the Pisces end, which is the next CIRF week when the sun goes into Pisces for the spring equinox. But the Pisces itself, it can be more of a as above, so below. You already have a lot of people saying the end is nigh anyway, so I think you're just going to get a lot more frequency of seeing those things. Major square alignments dominate the relatively strong and otherwise peaceful and dreamy Piscean energy this week. In fact, Pisces picks a fight with adaptable and nimble Mars to create tension, defensiveness, conflict, and guilt trips. Meanwhile, Princess of Peace Venus picks a fight with control freak Pluto, making conflict almost guaranteed between souls. This conflicted energy will easily distract folks from the waning yin moon during this period, making it hard to relax and let go, which is what you want to do during this moon phase. The whole waning side is more about letting go and relaxing. All right. You want to see the energy chart? Let's do it. Here's the energy graph. Okay. So it's a little too tall. I'm going to have to fix that. All right. We have 2 arrows here, and it might be the same thing, actually. Oh, let me explain. So the purple line is Pisces. It stays relatively high enough to put on the graph. But we have the conflict and pessimism in the red line is just escalating pretty much linearly until a climax towards the end. And this actually goes up even more on the next day, and then it starts to crest and go down again. Okay, so this might not be separate lines. This might be more of like a U line if it's just one line, because half of this conflict and pessimism is the Piscean group. All right. So anyway, much stronger towards the end of the week, the CIRF week. That's next Wednesday, and even Thursday, even much the same. That will be the next CIRF report. All right. You ready to do this solution? So we have the same hexagram because there was no change lines, but now we're going to read it in terms of behavior, what to do. Creative solutions that meet others halfway are more valuable and longer lasting than victories achieved through force. Okay, there's one indication. Keep a clear head, protect their integrity, and look out for their own interests. That's a strong character, by the way. It can help to find a fair-minded mediator who can settle these matters. So find mediation or find help in solving the conflict. In time of conflict and turmoil, new ventures and new initiatives should be avoided, and that matches the waning moon. Seek advice or arbitration from an impartial or mature person, and consider the option of compromise. Clarify the roles and responsibilities of those with whom you live and work to reduce conflict. Now, so we're gonna put that into our triangulation, and then next we're gonna put the Sun and Neptune in a conjunction and put that in our conversion chart. We're going to get hexagram 36 of the rave, or gate 36, and we're going to have the Pisces solution. So first, it's the darkening of the light. That's gate 36. The rule of cycles, in which decline is a natural but not enduring stage. And here we are. The Sun and Neptune are together in line 3, and Mercury is in line 2. So in line 3, the point at which decline has exhausted its power, it's a transition. The point at which decline has exhausted its power, it almost looks like the timing for the spring equinox. Not only are we going into a powerful Aries energy, but could it be that the as above, so below, the collective decline that we have undoubtedly seen is exhausting its power? That's a really telling rave gate. The ability to establish a new order out of the ashes of the old. The emotional depth to endure crisis and embrace change. Now, just a brief summary of Mercury in line 2, assistance to others in times of decline. I think that's indicative of where you're going to find the best use of mind is in supporting others, not self. And not saying that's going to be all that strong, but it's going to be better than if you use mind for self-gain or self-preservation. Try to use those for others. All right. Now let's go to the triangulation of the solution. And here it is. Remember, we had the I-Ching 6. Avoid new projects. Pay attention to intention. Seek counsel and advice. Clarify roles. Then we had the rave. It said that this too shall pass. Basically, decline has exhausted its power. That's kind of reminds you that the end is nigh, but it's just the beginning again. It's just kind of that conversation of Pluto, which I don't really think I accentuated that this week. And it really is important from day 2 this week of our astrology. So like that would be Friday. Pluto makes a big factor, right? So out of the ashes is appropriate. And then we have Pisces. All right, so let's put it all together. This week's solution matrix appears daunting, but there is a silver lining. Since conflict and crisis are indicated, it's recommended to heighten your awareness. That's Pisces. Get more information, stay engaged, but all the while avoid starting anything new in this period. Just like last week, if there is a crisis, go extra deep into the emotional content, a very Piscean skill. And remember that this too shall pass. So you can already start to see that we want to avoid escapism. That's one of the big suggestions here. But the reverse of that is equally probably problematic, which is to fight, especially with power and physical force. What we want to do is be more negotiative. And the struggle is you got Mercury so weakened and we got Venus, that's the other mediator. She's in a square with the control freak. So it's going to be very difficult to mediate. That's why you probably need to go get help with someone who can mediate a neutral party. That's part of this solution as well, because mind is just that weak. We are in transition as indicated by the rave, but also astrologically with the upcoming spring equinox. Pisces season closes next CIRF week with the spring equinox, and the new zodiacal year starts over. This week it is vital that we do not escape the pressures and conflict, rather stay connected, psychically aware, and compassionate. Foster your spiritual life during this time as you shed those things that are unhelpful or outside of your control. Give those up to your higher power. The statement that I plan to use is, I remain engaged, but relaxed and transcendent. The universe has my back. Don't be the victim. Don't perceive yourself the victim, okay? Dangerous, dangerous place, especially this week. So I'm asking you to do a lot. For Pisces, don't escape. But don't fight either. That's not your specialty either. And we have indication that the rave says that's just going to cause more problems. So compassionate and also self-sacrificing. It's not indicated that you have to give up your will. You can assert yourself this week, but don't use physical force. All right? It's a delicate dance this week. Don't rely on mind all that much. When it's getting confusing, you're feeling like you're getting bowled over, go get some help. Go get counseling, or go get marriage counseling, or go get a mediator, go get a lawyer to help you sort out to help you with the negotiation. Okay. And don't start any new big projects. All right. Get those done at the beginning of the week and just coast. All right. All right. That's it. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for the comments and shares. And I appreciate each and every one of you. And I'm not kidding, even if you've got something criticizing to say. I want criticism. All right. Take care, everyone. We'll have a blessed week. We'll see you next week.